free on that asphalt lane. 4 wide and ton a day, ain't holding no chain.
Gordon front, back, comfort, and we get baby. Bars and umbrellas on bunch, paper is 19.
4 cars side by side in a wild friend ride, with the roar of the engines leaving all doubts behind. As the wheels spin on, chasing dreams we can't hide. That's car life where legends never die.
Well, howdy.
Hey,
So about last week,
man, that was a stellar episode last week.
I know it was like I think it was our #1 rated episode. Everybody tuned in.
Yep, and you definitely saw our radio, and it was a great podcast.
Yeah. Last week it's probably the first time I've had a sore throat in years because I had my tonsils taken out when I was young because I had like constant strep throat.
Or since
And-
the Clash last year.
Well, that's a different kind of sore throat. That's the screaming. But yeah, it wasn't great. And then I think Blake was okay to come on, and Kent said he had a church meeting that occurred, so we just kind of all just like, we'll just move it on to next week. And then of course Kent says, "Hey, by the way, guys, I ain't gonna make it this week." So.
Yep, that's how it be.
And then I don't know if we mentioned this last week, but Austin says that he's got a couple of commitments he's got going on, so it might be a minute before we see him back on the podcast. He's got some inner workings at church. He just moved and everything, so he's got a whole bunch going on, but he'll eventually be back with us, we hope, at some point.
For sure.
So, well, Blake, what kind of exciting news you got?
Man, I'd go in about 10 or 15 different directions with that, Got fun NASCAR stuff, got baby on the way. There's a lot of good things going, but I'd say next week I would think's probably going to be a fun episode. We got Alex Clubb coming on, who's a ARCA Series driver, full-time ARCA Series driver, and so has a fantastic personality from what you can see on social media, and has definitely not ever angered the NASCAR officials one bit at all, like never. So super excited to have him on. They're doing a self-funded car with fans right now. Their sponsor backed out after the Daytona ARCA test, and so they're doing a GoFundMe and Venmo sponsored car where you can get your name on the car. So we're going to help Club Racing out a little bit for their Daytona ride, and so I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about that, but what it's like to just be a grassroots racer in the ARCA series, and how they look to improve from 2025 and what he's most looking forward to in 2026. And so, man, I'm really excited about that. We had Malazzi on a couple weeks ago, and then having Alex Clubb on, so I feel like we're rocking and rolling here.
It's like we're almost doing what we were expected to do last year, is getting some people on the podcast.
We are not in a sophomore slump, that's for sure.
We're starting to peak over here. It's kind of scary.
I know, right?
It's kind of early to peak. It's only the first month of the year. It's going to be kind of a steady decline after that.
Making sure I get all my work in for the baby comes.
That's right. Well, you mentioned really exciting NASCAR news. I know exactly what you're going to talk about. You were going to say that Corey LaJoie is going to be driving at the Daytona 500 as a fourth car for RFK Racing.
Man, when I think of the 99 car, I think of Corey LaJoie. So I'm stoked. Why? I think it's a good opportunity for him. I think it's no secret, on a serious note, that Corey's probably in a rebuilding phase of his career. And look, try to call straight shots on here. You and I, eyewitnesses of it last year. He took an open car with Rick Ware, and man, there was a few moments there where we're like, Corey LaJoie might just win the Daytona 500 this year, because he had that thing screaming out front. So I think it's a pretty solid move by RFK. They saw what he could do in a Rick Ware car, which, granted, I know the draft is pretty big equalizer at Daytona, right? But still, he put together a small cup season for himself. And honestly, he turned some heads at Daytona, and that's what you got to do. And so I'm happy for them. Love to see RFK have 4 cars. It's almost nostalgic from when we were growing up, right? Back when they had 4 or 5 cars. And so I'm sure LaJoie will do well. It was really no competition in his duel last year. I mean, he raced his way in pretty legitimately, and I don't think it was even close with the other car he was racing against. So I think it's a good move by RFK. Granted, you never know what's going to happen in the duels. I will say the next gen cars put on some pretty good races when it comes to the duels. I know in the older car the duels were kind of like hit or miss, right? But the duels have been pretty interesting with this next gen car, especially when it comes to the open cars. And so I think it's a good move by RFK. I mean, looks like they got a pretty stellar sponsor. So I think it's a good move by them. If you can get 4 cars in and more data, more money, and more eyes, why not?
I'm glad that they kind of did like a modernized 99 font, kind of like how they've been doing with all the Chrome numbers. I'm glad they didn't just feel like, hey, we're going to bring the Carl Edwards font back, because it would have been kind of tacky compared to all the cars that they have on the racetrack now. So I'm glad that they made it different. And I think you said it best is there's not many more drivers that I would want in an open spot than Corey LaJoie at Daytona. He's historically always been really decent there. It doesn't matter what quality of car he's driving. It seems like he would always find his way at least up to the front. And I mean, you look at pretty much all the plate tracks the last year, RFK cars were up front in contention at the end of the race, and majority, if not all.
Yep.
I mean, there was a point where we thought Ryan Preece was going to win at the end of last year. Brad Kay is always in contention. You can say that's just because Brad Kay's really good, but then you have people like Chris Buescher. He's won at Daytona. I think that it's a good organization for Corey to jump into the ride and see if he can win and pretty much prove all the doubters wrong.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be a statement win in his career.
absolutely. And I think Corey does have tons of potential as a driver. I mean, you don't make it to that level if you don't have some talent, right? And so it would have been nice if he could have got a win back when he was more popular, right? I think that would have been super, super helpful for him. But like I said, I mean, in a rebuilding spot, and hope hope it works out for him. I don't wish him any harm or any uh malicious thoughts toward him. Right? So especially coming on with Roush, kind of hard to hate anybody driving for Roush at that moment. So yeah, and I think it even goes deeper of Brad Kay's vision for that team, right? Because to get RFK back to a 4th car, when you look at man, just maybe 10 years ago, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, and it's like, man, they were struggling. To have 4 cars would have been like, what? And so the fact that they're able to put a deal together for this, I think shows that, man, Brad's a pretty doggone good owner. And that's not a surprise to anybody, right? I mean, he won tons of races in the truck series and has taken that 6 car from lackluster, to say it best, to a race winning car.
Still chasing that win, though.
Yeah, he won at Darlington, and I think he's really propelled Bush's career, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And
Just last year in general, that's why he was chasing that win. I mean, Darlington, you can't take any wins away historically, but that win kind of fell into his lap a little bit.
yeah,
It wasn't like he just dominated the race. It kind of worked out just in his favor, which he needed to happen at that point because everything's worked against him. And then you look at the year that he had last year, and then, yeah, it's the exact same thing. Everything worked against him. It just seemed like nothing had ever lined up for him. other news that we got before we get to the big news, I guess we're kind of like just pushing it off because it's what the main topic of this podcast probably is going to be today. Burt Myers is returning to Amerivet at Bowman Gray, so that he'll be running that car once again. Not a big shocker by any means. It's kind of a hometown race for him. So, and with the amount of experience that he has at that racetrack, it's kind of no-brainer, right? Plus, he has experience from last year, so that helps out a lot too.
For sure. And I think, man, I would love to see, I don't mean any disrespect to Team Amerivet, right? But man, wouldn't you love to see what Burt Myers could do in a really well-funded cup car at Bowman Gray? You know, Burt Myers, and I think of people like Tim Brown and some Bowman Gray legends like that, is what if they would have had the right brake, you know? So, man, I would love to see, like, what would Burt Myers do well in a, like, if they would have chosen him to fill in for Brad Kay at the Clash instead of LaJoie, right? Like, how would that go? And so maybe the team can take some notes from last year, be laser focused on some things they need to improve, and just see where it goes, right? Never hurts trying to get out there, and it's really good. It's good publicity. I know, like, and Cole, I know you can probably speak to this too, because you're really well versed in the diecast world. But man, Amerivet sold tons of diecast with Burt Myers in that 50 Citrus Safe and Pinnacle car last year. It was quite a bit for a team that made 2 starts max, 3 starts maybe. Yeah. And so the fact that they sold that many diecast with just a couple starts shows they got the right driver behind the wheel for their publicity, right? And yeah, you wouldn't want anybody else driving your car. And if you're a small team like that, go get a guy like that who can be a hometown hero who can give you some publicity. So I like it. Hopefully they can improve on last year's performance, because, man, you and I both know how electric that crowd was. Imagine if Burt Myers or Tim Brown would have gotten in. Man, it would have been pretty rad for sure.
Oh, I mean, he had his day pretty much ended by the old Sonny D man, if you remember right. So
Yeah.
that was a fun experience to be a part of. And then wearing a Sonny D hat on top of that. And people are like, take that off. I'm like, this is a Josh Berry hat. I don't know what's up with you guys, but just like, I'm leaving it on. Screw it. My hair looks bad. I ain't doing it.
But yeah, super excited for Burt Myers, and maybe he can make some bigger gains this year in the Cup Series. It's good to, they had so much publicity. They gave him a ride for Spring Martinsville last year too, right? That 50 car. And so maybe it can help propel him to get a couple more Cup starts, especially if he can do pretty well. Maybe that's the kind of platform he might need. Right. And I know he's not like the youngest driver ever, right? I don't think full-time Cup's probably in his vision at this point, right? But still, it would be a pretty cool story to see a guy like Myers be able to get a few more Cup starts.
Yeah, he's 50 years old, so.
Yeah, so pretty much backs up.
One race that I would love to see him race at was Bristol in the fall. I feel like I think he could have done really well, since he's like a racer's racer, especially on those short tracks. Not much grip on those tires. He probably could have made up a lot of time.
Yeah, because I think, that actually is a really good observation, because it's probably safe to say that speed wasn't the biggest factor in that race. It was more of how well could you take care of your tires, and man, that's the name of the game in modified racing. So, yeah.
Alrighty, last few things here. 7, Ford will be running a different body. They'll be doing the Dark Horse SC Mustang. So it'll be a different body. That's kind of Chevrolet released theirs this year. Kind of makes sense that they're going to be innovating. So be on the lookout for that. And also Beard Motorsports. Guess what? They're going to be running the Daytona 500 once again for the 9th time. Their driver is going to be Anthony Alfredo. Now, pretty consistent with that most of the time with Daytona. Alfredo's really good at plate tracks. Great guy. Brings good sponsorship. pretty much just a win-win for both of those, for him and the organization.
Yeah. I think don't count out Beard Motorsports to qualify in on time. I think they actually did that one year. It was either with Alfredo or Austin Hill, but I'm pretty sure they beat out people like 2311's third car at the time or fourth car, and maybe a third Roush or a third, maybe another powerhouse team that ran an extra car at that time. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but they were one of those teams you didn't expect them to qualify on time, and they did. And so don't be surprised if they qualify in, because they're definitely a dark horse, but they can definitely make it happen.
They've qualified out of the last 9 Daytona starts that they've made. They've gotten in 6 of them, so that's a pretty good ratio. If they get in this year, it'll be 70%. So it's pretty darn good for a team that's, not super well funded by any means. Big news time. Big news, big news. I don't know if you guys have, looked at a screen, TV, you might have got a fax, I don't know. But if you guys are remotely interested in NASCAR, you would have learned last week that they announced the new point system for this year, which is kind of, when I put new in quotation marks, it's kind of a recycled, but yet staying slightly relevant with the way that they've done things recently, which is essentially the chase. That if you guys remember back in the chase days, my mind immediately goes to Jimmy Johnson winning all the time. So be prepared to see Christopher Bell win 3 or 4 championships in a row at this point. Just being completely honest with you guys. And if Christopher Bell's your driver, that's great for you. Be good for the sport, I guess, because he's a younger driver. Be hitting all the marks, but just be prepared to that. But we will break down the point system with you guys. Blake, I will let you start, and I will fill in any gaps that you forget.
Yeah, I think this is a great move by NASCAR. Personally, I never had too much of a problem with the elimination style. I thought it was pretty fun for the most part, but however, over time, it did show its flaws, right? Like the Harrison Burton's getting in, and then and like the Austin Dillons, and then the fact that like last year at Daytona, you saw that when Cody Ware was leading, like they had his name up there amongst the chase drivers, and it's like you started to see some illegitimacies that specific format brought. And I saw, to kind of sum it up, I saw something that was pretty funny that you mentioned Jimmy Johnson. I saw where something said that Jimmy Johnson was so good in the chase they had to change it, and Joey Logano was so bad in this old system they had to change it back to the chase. And I don't want to say a champion's ever illegitimate, right? But I think when you look at, if you compare it to the old format, that like Logano was like 14th in points that year, and yet he still won the championship. I think that really was the turning point on why they needed a new format. And so I like it. I like that there's 16 drivers still. There's a lot more incentives for these teams to like, especially money incentives for them to make the playoffs, and so or make the chase in this matter. And so I've got no problem with 16. I know some people probably would prefer 12, or 10 if you want to go super old school, right? But I think 16's fine, because it's like, if you're 16th in points and you're 100 points back, I don't think you're going to make that up too much, right? So I don't think there's going to run into any problems there. I think there'll be good publicity for that, for the teams that make it. And it's safe to say, if you can't make the top 16 and just based off points, you probably didn't deserve to be in the chase, right? And so, yeah, I love too that they are awarding 55 points for a win instead of 40 throughout the season, because I think I think winning your end made teams really want to go for wins more versus how it was back when we were growing up, Cole, right? Because you would hear so many drivers say all the time, well, we didn't necessarily have to win. We just needed to have a good points day, right? And man, that got old because I'm like, you kind of were desperate for like, who's that driver that's going to go for the win, right? So I think that was a good aspect of the last playoff system that we had is like wins mattered, but you could also throw a lot of races away. And that's where it was lacking. So that's why I think of this new system, it's a perfect balance because you get 55 points if you win, but also you cannot afford to just have a race be thrown away. So legitimacy and consistency and speed are really going to matter. And if you've got like a sixth place car and that's all you really have, it's probably safe to say you don't need to be going for second or third. Because if you try that and risk it and end up third, that could be the one race that changes your whole season, right? It could be getting that extra 25 points for the regular season champion to not having that. And so I like that they're awarding more points for a win. So to kind of sum that up, I think it's a good balance of hey, winning is super, super valuable and it rewards it with points, but also you can't afford to throw a race away. So I like that aspect of it. And I like the fact that just over 26 races, it's going to be the top 16 and who has the most points after that. And pretty much when they reset it, NASCAR always starts out the chase or the playoffs, however you want to say it, in the 2000s range. So first is going to have 2,100 points when they reset after race number 26. And then second is going to have 2,075 points. And then I think third is like 2065 or 2060. And then it just goes down in like 5 point increments after that. So running consistent to give you a 25 point boost is going to be epic. Because I think in the last system, the 15 points weren't always enough, right? They definitely helped. But I think it gives a better cushion now because, like, if the first place guy had 3 bad races and were to go out in the elimination round, you're kind of like, so somebody who was 14th made it, but the first place guy did, that had the potential to create a lot of problems. And so I think it's, really, really good. And I think with this, guys are going to eliminate themselves naturally, right? And I don't mean any disrespect, but like somebody like Shane Van Gisbergen, right? Do I think he has the potential to make the chase being top 16 in points because he's been improving on the ovals? 100%, especially if he can get 5 wins like he did last year. But crap, I just lost my train of thought.
You said that you said SVG might have a chance to be able to get in via wins and points, but there's going to be drivers that naturally eliminate themselves through the system.
Yeah, so if you see like if somebody does have a problem with like with somebody who has just one specialty and like that's road courses, right? If he gets in, the fact that he might struggle a little bit more on ovals means he's going to eliminate himself, right? Or say somebody like a 16th place driver gets in who doesn't really have any wins, just ran 10th to 15th consistently all year. Eventually, they're going to eliminate themselves because they're not winning, right? So I think you're going to have a more purist way of elimination over like the manufactured eliminations that you have going on, right? And so I think it's bringing a lot of like racing purity back, but also too, like I loved the like the chase races, especially like there was a lot of times where you were going into Miami and you still didn't know who the champion was going to be, right? And so I think like probably best case scenario of that's probably 2011, right? With Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards tying. I think just because you don't necessarily have that game 7 moment doesn't mean you're not going to get it, because we've seen it throughout the years. You think of like the 1992 season, 1997 seasons. A lot of these seasons were overall. It came down like to the last race. So I think it's going to be natural. And look, if a guy goes in to Homestead and he's 125 points ahead, well, then he deserved to be the champion, right? Like you think of Corey Heim this year. He deserved to have the championship given to him at probably the Roval, and then Zilich would have probably deserved to have that before the last race too, right? And so if there's a domination, I think you just got to respect it, right? And know that it's probably going to be different coming next year. And so overall, I really like it. I think it's a wonderful compromise. I think it gets rid of a lot of manufactured stuff I think people had a big problem with. The downside is you're probably not going to have your big underdog stories of like a Harrison Burton getting in, which it's nice here and there. Right? You also know that they're not going to win the championship, right? It's not like if an NFL team makes a wild card, anybody can win at any given moment in the NFL playoffs, right? A 2024 Harrison Burton was not going to beat somebody like a 2024 Christopher Bale in the championship. There's just no getting around that, right? And so it might take away some of that, but also too, like it does focus on, hey, they won a race. The fact that so I think it's going to shift to where the storyline's going to be, oh, Harrison Burton, and I'm just using him as an example, right? Harrison Burton makes the playoffs. I think it's going to just be laser focused on Harrison Burton won at Daytona, and that was the 100th win for the Wood brothers. And that specific race is going to be what's talked about. And I think it's going to make every race matter. And that's what I love about it, because a good, genuine champion is going to be good everywhere over the long haul. So I like it. What about you, Cole? I know I kind of talked a lot there. Where would you fill in, or what are your thoughts?
I think it's probably the best hybrid that they could probably do of a old school and a new school point system at this current moment. One thing that was kind of not mentioned is obviously if the Cup is adopting this, the lower series are also adopting a similar format. Where the Cup Series, they have the top 16 drivers. The O'Reilly Series will be 12, and the Truck Series will be 10 drivers.
Yeah.
All the same system essentially, just to remember that there's just a number of opportunities for different teams at that point. Like if you're in trucks, top 10 in trucks, I mean, that's pretty tough because you got some pretty strong organizations that are going to be fighting for that 9th and 10th spot, in all honesty. Especially, like when I think of like consistency, I think of someone like Ben Rhodes, someone that doesn't necessarily win a ton, but historically is usually competing at least in the top 10 for the most part. He'd be a good driver to be able to get into the top 10 and then maybe rack off a couple wins and then boost up a little bit higher in the points. I think that it helps drivers like that, but it also hinders people like maybe honestly like a Denny Hamlin this year. Denny Hamlin wins, 7 wins or something like that. It probably helps him points wise, and I think that he would probably had a decent shot at winning the ship this year if it was this format. It still wouldn't have been, easy peasy, lemon squeezy by any means. I think there has still been a pretty good consistent fight at the end. I don't know if Larson's your champion at the end of that race either. I think it would be fun to go back and recalculate all this up after the fact.
I did see it. Yeah.
The Cup Series chase is 10 final races for the season, where O'Reilly is 9 races and the Trucks is only 7. I mean, it makes kind of mirror sense of how it was this year. You have less races for the Trucks, less races for the Xfinity this year, or last year, and now this year, the O'Reilly Series, which we will struggle quite a bit to be able to remember that currently on our head. But ultimately, we can sit here and describe, all the different changes, but if you take it baseline, The driver with the most points at the end of the season is your champion. That's it. It doesn't matter about these 55 points that you get for winning or anything. It doesn't matter if he wins 10 wins. If he's like a Ryan Blaney who DNFs a bunch like he did this year, there's no freaking shot that Ryan Blaney is going to win the championship, because those DNFs will absolutely bombard his average finish plus the points that he would get for those finishes. He wouldn't even be in the running. So it hurts drivers like that, which you want Ryan Blaney to be in the hunt, because I'm famous last name in NASCAR. One of your most popular drivers outside of Elliott and Larson is probably in your top 3 for sure. If not, the most popular driver. We've talked about this before, but it's going to force drivers who make mistakes to not make those mistakes again, or make the drivers that cause the other drivers not to have mistakes. They will have to work harder to improve. Like, we won't see as much Hocevar stuff. Hocevar is probably going to clean up a lot this year, because he causes anybody to be in a terrible incident where it takes them out of the points. It's not going to be fun to be Carson Hocevar. So I think you see people like him clean up. You see drivers who are more consistent, like a Christopher Bell, be more concurrently ready to go. And I think we're going to see some really interesting things for this coming season. Another small smidget to include to this is NASCAR also adjusted the Xfinity fastest lap eligibility. We've mentioned this last year at times. We're like, I don't know about how these drivers that come back from the garage have really damaged race cars who are able to make modifications should be able to be eligible to earn that 1 point, where now points mean so much more than they did last year. Drivers will no longer be able to get this reward if they have been repaired in the garage. So if they go behind the wall and get repairs, they're not eligible to get that fastest lap. I think that's a fantastic change. I endorse that change. I'm one of the people that may have mentioned that change on this podcast. I can't remember if it was me who brought it up, but I remember it being brought up, and I'm like,
You know what I think actually, what race we talked about it was Darlington in the fall, because from where Josh Berry wrecked on, was it lap 1?
yeah.
And he's in the garage for 100 laps or something like that. And they come back out and he gets the fastest lap. When it's like, well, of course he does. The back end of his car is off, And so I think that's a better rule. You do close up a huge loophole by doing that, right? Because it's like, well, all these cars are obviously legal who are running, but then you have a car that is damaged, and it's like, well, what is there if you change something or just take a back end of it off or something, right? At the tracks, you can do that, and it's like, well, of course you're going to get the fastest lap. So I'm glad they made that change. I think it was kind of bogus that somebody in that scenario could do that. And look, I like Josh Berry a lot, right? But I don't think he should have got the fastest lap because he never completed one lap from the lead lap, right?
And then also there's been some more lug nut changes on the lower series. So obviously we have the singular nut on the wheels in the Cup Series, so you don't have to worry about this. But in these lower series, each car, if you take all 4 wheels, they have 20 lug nuts between those 4 tires. If 19 of the 20 lug nuts are secure, teams will lose their pit selection for the next race. That's only 1 lug.
Wow.
If only 18 are secure, it's a fine, $5,000 flat in the O'Reilly series and $2,500 in the Truck series. And there is a 1 race crew member suspension. So I would imagine it's the tire changer. If there are 4 missing lug nuts, that's almost a whole tire. It is a disqualification on the race in both series. So this kind of negates the crew chief being suspended now. That's something that we've seen a lot with these lugs is 1 missing lug, you would get the $5,000, and then the crew chief would be suspended for multiple missing lug nuts. You don't really have to necessarily worry about that the way that this is worded because it's a one race crew member suspension. And crew member, I feel like hints at the tire changer. Whoever it's the front or the rear tire changer, whoever that is, that's the one that's going to get that. I don't think it's going to be the crew chief. I think the teams kind of lobbied up on NASCAR there and said, hey, being able to, have our crew chief thrown out is kind of harsh, where strategy. But if you don't have stuff like this happen, then you don't have Dale Jr. on top of the box being a crew chief for Connor Zillich, right?
Yeah.
Ultimately. So, I mean, you're missing out on opportunities, but I think it probably just thinking common sense, I think that's a great change because I think it's a really big penalty for anyone to lose out on who is the crew, the honcho, the head coach of your NASCAR team over some lug nuts that were probably not their fault. It's the people's fault that are down there on the bottom of the box.
Yeah. And I think, I never really understood the whole like banishing the crew chief for a race or two, right? Because they would just go back, especially in the Cup Series, they would just go right back to the war room and the shop and call the race from there, right? Now, granted, I don't think O'Reilly and so they might have a war room, right? But still, it's like I'm sure they probably have an influence on the car prep that week and all that stuff, right? So I think it's a reallocation of placing blame where the blame should be, and that probably is the tire changer because he's the one changing the lug nuts, right? And so, I mean, to me, it's kind of like it would be like blaming the pitcher because the infielders couldn't put their glove on the ground and field a ground ball, right? And so, if you can't field the ground ball, you get replaced, you personally, right? So I think that's probably the best way to go about it.
It's almost like firing your head coach because your team can't hit the ball in baseball. It's like that makes no sense. Like why are you firing a manager who's I mean, sure their win percentage is probably not the best, but all they do is they put the lineup together. They put their pitching rotation together. They manage their bullpen and make those calls. That's all they do. Everything else is literally on the players themselves. But you can't fire players because they have guaranteed contracts. So they're like, I guess we're just going to have to make the coaches the scapegoat.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I really hate about stick and ball sports or just ball sports. And NASCAR's getting away from that now, obviously, with this new system of the chase. They're kind of negating kind of that playoff format that you see in other sports. You're going back to their more traditional style roots, which is what majority of vocal fans wanted at the end of the season. So it only makes sense. Also, NASCAR, I think this was mentioned a little bit earlier, is that they actually lowered the minimum age for drivers on a mile and a quarter and shorter tracks in the O'Reilly Series to 17 years old, which is between the 16-year-old minimum for trucks and the 18 for Cup. So you might see a 17-year-old in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series, younger than Connor Zillich. So think on that one.
Is that? I wonder if they did that for Brent Cruz. How old is
Yes.
Cruz? His contract was to run like 29 out of the 33 races, and it's like I think though, because at the face value, you're like, well, if you sign for 29 out of 33 races, why not sign for a whole season? But I think those four might have been eligibility.
So he's currently 17 years old, but his birthday's in March 30th. So
Okay.
he'll turn 18 this year. If they lowered it to 17, he could obviously start the year compared to waiting till after March 30th and field line starts after that.
I got you.
Yes, sir. And then there's also, I'll just read this straight off the book. That way I don't have to explain this because my brain's just at this point, just like there's so much verbiage. It's like law almost. And we hear the word law as a NASCAR fan and we start to shudder.
Yeah.
And I quote, NASCAR will hold a potential 4 additional spots for OEM provisionals in this series' first 3 truck series races as Ram makes its return to NASCAR. If any of the manufacturer's entries fail to make the 36 truck field on qualifying speed at Daytona, Echo Park, Atlanta Motor Speedway, or the street race at St. Petersburg, Florida, the vehicle would be added to the rear of the starting lineup, leading to a maximum 4-truck field if necessary. So essentially, they're like, hey, Ram, you're getting in regardless at this point. We're just going to make the field 40 trucks.
Well, I'm sure there's probably two sides to that, if I had to imagine. I see that over Twitter and Instagram and platforms like that. It looked like Frankie Muniz wasn't too thrilled about that. I could see it both ways. It's like, say you're a lower series, say you're in the truck series and you're a lower funded team, like a Norm Benning or a uh, Justin Carroll or some guys like that. And there were 37 trucks or 38 trucks on the entry list, and the past few years you've been trying to race, or in Norm's case quite a bit, and it's like they had such a strict cutoff at 36 and you didn't make it, and now Ram comes in and they're like, yeah, let's give you free spots. I'm sure that could probably piss those guys off, right? I also get it's good for the series to guarantee Ram in, and it's good for probably their morale and business model to usher them in, right? But man, I'm sure if I was on that borderline of trying to make it every week, I'm sure I'd be livid at this. But also money talks, right? And Ram has put a lot of money in, and especially but also too, like, would it be a good look to have all this hype of Tony Stewart come in and Tony Stewart not qualify for a truck race? Would that be a good look? I can't imagine so. They put all this hype behind Ram, and it's like, oh, they can't qualify for their first 3 races. You might have like a Mike Bliss factor in the 2012 Cup Series vibe, right? I get it. I'm glad that Ram's going to have these specific things because they've got a reality show behind it. They've got special drivers coming in each week. Like, I love what they're doing for the truck series. And I think that should be replicated throughout all the series, really. The kind of hype they put behind. I could see how that could ruffle some feathers.
I mean, literally, I'm sitting here, and this is the first thing that come to my mind. I'm just going to play this, see if I can get it.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
That's literally it. Money talks. Money talks. And that's the exact reason that they are doing this. NASCAR executives right now are just like,
Here comes the money.
that is literally what the NASCAR executives are doing right now, is they are drowning in Dodge/Ram money in the truck series. They're going to bring a lot of fans back with the drivers that they're bringing back to the racetrack, like a Tony Stewart. Just think about the hype that Casey Kane had when he came back for the Xfinity, now O'Reilly series at Rockingham. The amount of people that I seen at Rockingham and Casey Kane stuff was crazy. I didn't even know Casey Kane had that many fans, if I'm being quite frank with you. Especially a lot of them were wearing Hendrick stuff, which is even more insane. I mean, I get, old school number 9, him winning all the time. Those people with 5 stuff, I'm like, daggone, these people are true. Like Casey Kane fans, they went through the 5 years to see him win just the Brickyard and a couple other races. But you bring someone up like a Tony Stewart, multi-time champion, fantastic clip expert, always has great sound bites. Don't be surprised, I don't know how possible this is with drivers that have, so I guess really it is possible, but maybe you see like a Dale Jr. in a truck or something crazy. The only problem that you have with is you got the JRM alignment with Chevrolet,
Yeah.
and they're with Hendrick, and Hendrick's kind of with Spire. So it's like, is it a possibility? But then again, it's like, would Dale Jr. say no to the chance to race a truck? Maybe but maybe not because he's never really raced one. It's,
Well,
I
and I'm
guess it
sure,
really just depends.
well, I'm sure too, if you're a colleague merch employee or a work with if you can get somebody like a Junior or a Tony Stewart in to help with T-shirt sales, which they were good at, dadgummit, they were good at it. He still is good at it. Hat sales, die cast sales, and when you say Stewart, Earnhardt, Gordon, some of these guys who they might could pull from, I think of maybe even like a Michael Waltrip at a short track, maybe. That brings some money, I'm sure, on the sponsorship. And look, I know not Colleague, I know Rams paying for a lot of this, but say they could bring that plus the sponsorship as a team. Are you going to say no to it? No. So like I said, I love what they're doing. I absolutely do. And I think it's going to be really cool to see who they come up with. Maybe they bring foreign drivers in who are really well known, but to race a truck series, could that expose NASCAR in a better way? I don't know if you bring like a Lewis Hamilton to a road course, right? Or a Verstappen to a Circuit of the Americas if the trucks are running there, or to a Sonoma or a Lime Rock or somewhere like that, right? I think you got a big potential to grow the sport, and not just the sport, but to help some of these lower series out, like the truck series, right? And you've got this reality show that it's all paid for, so they're just finding good drivers, and that kind of helps out with what the big complaint is of, well, we can't really go after the talent. We got to go after people with the money. Well, the money's taken care of here. Now they can go after talent. So what Colleague's doing is so countercultural to the model, and fans love it. And it's what we've been asking for as fans, right? So I'm like, it looks like there's nothing to complain about from a fan's perspective, right? And so I'm stoked for it, especially if they brought these superstars back. And I tell you what's a good sign is if Tony Stewart's willing to come back to NASCAR, that shows they're in a good direction. Because, when Tony left, he wasn't the biggest fan. Now, granted, I don't think Tony was the biggest fan when he was in NASCAR either at some points, right? But the fact that he left the way he did and he's willing to come back, I think that's probably a good sign.
I'll tell you what, there's one name I'm sitting here thinking about is what if we see Carl Edwards back in a NASCAR circuit?
Or a Kenny Wallace.
I don't know about Kenny. I know he races all the time, man, but a NASCAR race is so long.
But I like what you said about Edwards. I think that's a specific possibility that could happen.
Well, he's so fit. He's still fit to this day. I seen him at the Roval a year or two ago, and the man is still jacked out of his mind. He's conditioned where he could jump in a race car and not struggle at all.
Yeah.
Where, maybe like a Kenny Wallace, he would probably have to do some little bit of conditioning and stuff and get prepared for, a little bit longer mileage compared to those dirt races that he usually does.
Yeah. Or
Maybe a Bobby Labonte,
yeah.
right?
Yeah. Like a Bobby Labonte. I think of what about like a Ryan Newman, right? Or now I know Schrader's really old, but he still does a lot of racing. But like, what about a Ken Schrader? Or let's see, we said Schrader as well. Let's see, I had somebody else I was thinking of too. Oh yeah, like for the free agent truck, given some of these guys that are just part time, but they're just needing the right opportunity. I think of, and obviously we're going to be kind of biased here, but like a Stephen Malazzi, right? Um, what if somebody like him got a shot and showed his potential? I think of maybe a Matt DiBenedetto, right? Who is in a rebuilding part of his racing career, right? I think the abilities are endless here because I think you could have a storyline every week for each single race, and that's going to be awesome because all eyes, like I hate to break it to the other teams, right? But all eyes are going to be on college trucks this year. Heim's out. I'm sure Heim will be part time in some trucks or O'Reilly and Cup, right? But he doesn't have a full time ride in any series right now. So when it comes to all eyes are on college. So man, I think I am super, super excited for what they're doing. Because what they're doing is it kind of reminds you of like the days NASCAR was growing, right? And I'm talking about rapidly. I know NASCAR's growing here and there right now, right? But I'm talking about when it was like peak 150, 200,000 fans at the track every weekend. It wasn't all based on money, it was based on talent. You had superstars, and it looks like that's what they're going for here. Everything we've been begging for as fans, college trucks are offering this year. No, you're good. But they've hired guys who have proven themselves, like Justin Haley, really good driver. He just needs the right fit. Butterbean, super excited about him. And then Daniel Dye, going to be interesting to see what he'll do in a college truck, right? I think that's probably the wild card there. Don't exactly know how that'll go, but I love what they're doing. I'm so excited for the truck series this year.
I think that they have the perfect blueprint as long as they don't frick it up. If they don't try hard enough to frick it up, I think that colleague's gonna be golden for next 5-10 years if Dodge comes back into any of the upper series. If they replicate, the funding and amount that they can give, I'm sure Cup is pretty much impossible to be just like straight up, Ram Dodge. And I think that colleague's in a great place to grow as an organization while also growing NASCAR concurrently with them, especially on the lower series. You got these regional guys like Butterbean, everybody loves. Haley, like you said, I think he just had a rough go at it last couple years. We got to see his first win at Daytona. Talented race car driver. I mean, all you had to do is look at his Xfinity wins/races to know that he's super talented.
Yeah.
Maybe just some racecraft that he needs to develop on these lower series that might be able to implement it into these upper series. But I think Ram and Dodge is probably, man, it's hard to imagine a way that they freak this up. In all honesty, all they have to do is just smash the right buttons, find the right people, and just continue the hype. Throw Cletus in a truck.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically all you have to do. And I'm looking forward to see what they do. I don't know how well they're going to be able to compete, given it's, the first year manufacturer, the learning curves and everything that's going to go along with that. They obviously got the money that they can throw in to do sim, dyno, et cetera, testing. But it's still different implementing that during race weekends and races themselves. So it'll be interesting to see how it sorts out.
Well, and I think to counter that in a way, just to think about it, you look at when Biffle made his start for Kyle Busch Motorsports at Texas that one year, right? Hadn't really been in this series or driven a cup car in 2, 3, 4 years. Jumps right in and wins, right? So could we see multiple scenarios like that? Like a Tony Stewart goes to a super speedway and just shows them that he still has it, or Edwards at a place like Homestead. right? This is so great for the fans. And that's obviously the whole purpose of our podcast, right? Coming at it from a fan's perspective. Man, I love what Colleague is doing.
To counter that point that you counter mine is Greg Biffle literally drove for Kyle Busch Motorsports, one of the best programs in the truck series historically.
Yep.
So it's different going from a really well-oiled machine like a Kyle Busch Motorsports to a first-year new manufacturer. Obviously, Colleague's got experience and data on the racetracks, sure, but not with the current engine combo, with the current styling of aero, and that's where the big learning curve is going to be. I'm not even going to say issue, just the learning curve, what they're going to have to figure out. So it's not all apples to apples with this, because this is a different thing. We've not had a manufacturer come back into the sport or come to the sport in a long time. It's been a long time since we had that happen. And it's not going to be all oranges, apples, and bananas, you know, smoothies. You're going to mix up some really crappy smoothies before you get that right combination. But with the talent that they have weekly, plus the drivers that they come in with these free agent truck, plus whoever ends up winning this series, right? I think that they have an equal mixture of consistency with names. I think that they will be able to do it. It's just going to be how long is it going to take them throughout the year to start doing really well, when we just literally talked about how this point system is. You got to be consistent. So if you start the first half of the year and you're not consistent, you're going to be pretty much chasing up a hill.
Yeah.
So that's my concluding point with that. That's my perspective on it. I mean, I'm just thinking of it new age NASCAR, right? Now that the point system's changed. So, I mean, past that, man, I don't got anything else that we really need to talk about. I think we've kind of touched pretty much all the news that really needs to be touched this week. But I'm kind of looking at this calendar, man. It's January 20th when we're recording this. It'll be January 21st when this gets uploaded. Clash is getting kind of close, isn't it?
Yes. I'm excited.
I believe it's 25 days till the Daytona 500 too.
Yep. I know both of those races still have a decent amount of tickets available. Especially when it comes to the portion for seats that each track has, right? They both have a decent amount. But it looks like they're going fairly quick. If you live in North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, let's say anywhere in the surrounding areas of Winston-Salem, you got to go to Bowman Gray if you've never been. I can't describe, and I know we've talked about it on the podcast, I know last year, but man, that atmosphere is electric. It was epic. You got to go. And then obviously too, if you've never been to Daytona is one of those places where you just got to go. If you consider yourself a true race fan, you can't die and realize that you never went to Daytona. I mean, it's worth every penny of it.
Bowman Gray got Blake so excited it literally caused him to get COVID. I mean, that's how excited he was for Bowman Gray. So just throwing that out there, if you guys get so excited that you end up getting sickness, Bowman Gray's the place for you.
Just don't come near section 2 where we're at.
He's going to be all masked up. He's going to look like a robber. He's going to have the ski mask on,
Yeah.
have the lip duct tape shut. You just have to breathe through your nose.
Have like a Fauci mask.
It'll be great.
With it all. It'll be fantastic.
All righty. Well, next week, as Blake mentioned, we will have the honor and privilege to have Alex Clubb. We'll get to ask him a couple of questions. If you guys have a question for Alex Clubb, feel free to throw it down in the comment section below. I'm going to go ahead and say, if you literally leave a comment, we probably can get your question thrown in. So if you have a question for a NASCAR driver, NASCAR team owner, great personality, you have the opportunity to literally, all you got to do, it's tough for some people, I understand. It's tough. But you take your fingers, you put them on a keyboard, you type letters in, and then you mash comment. Or if you're on a cellular device, you use these little things, also your fingers, but use the little bit right there. You tap on the keyboard on your phone or tablet or other device, smart device, and then you mash comment. And you have the chance to have your question asked.
I think we can make
That's all I'm saying. If you guys ask a question, we're basically guaranteeing you the chance to have this question be asked. Now, we may edit it just a little bit to make it a little bit more specific and everything, sure. But the mere basis and premise of your question will be answered next week on the 4Y podcast. So, anything else you guys say?
I'll echo what you said, my man. Send us your questions, and really looking forward to next week. 2026 has been a fun year podcasting so far, man, and so we're having a lot of fun. Really excited for the race season to start, and I think it's going to be a fun year.
I think so too. We'll see you guys next week.